doctor. Patient wanted to know if...
Shut the fuck up, okay? Shut the fuck up!
So this doesn't have anything to do with action figures, but I'll just kind of show you what's been taking up my time lately. I've been making a present for my wife, and I want to incorporate our boys' laughs into it. So this is my initial mock-up of little statues with speakers underneath, and then you'd push the button, you'd hear their laugh. But I don't know how to sculpt, so I found this website that allowed me to just kind of import my image, and it came out with this image here, which isn't great. You can see the mouths are a little messed up, and the hands and feet are all janky. But at least gave me like a base that I could start with. So I put that into Blender, spent several hours trying to figure out how to work Blender, and then printed those out. So you can see here I was kind of testing out what sizes I wanted to do, either bigger or smaller. I ended up going with the bigger option just because that would be easier to paint. So again, here's the initial mock-up, and then here's the first set of printouts that I did. So the next step was to make that speaker. But looking at this, I decided not to do. It just seemed like too much work. So I ended up buying one of these Tonie boxes instead, and then they have an option to make custom ones. So I bought several of these, and then you have to pop out the face in order to get access to the RFID chip, and then cut off the base to get the magnets. Once I had all that stuff cut out, I was able to get this STL here, which is already a base with the holes put in it, so I can just insert everything. So I just had to scale it up a little bit. And as you can see, it worked out perfect. I just had to figure out how to add the names to the front of each one of these pucks, but besides that, it was good to go. From there, I needed to make a cover to hide the blue Tonie box. So I usually go to Colts 3D to look for files, and ended up going with this old-looking radio. Luckily, there was already an STL of an actual Tonie as well, so I could put them both in the Blender and scale them to make sure that the radio was going to cover the Tonie. I still had to make some adjustments and cut some holes to the top and attach some platforms to the base so the boys had some spots to sit. I tried to cut in the file into smaller pieces so I can still use my resin printer, but that just became a pain in the ass, and I ended up buying this printer instead. So a few $100s later and 22 hours of print time later, here's the result. And here's the boys all sanded up and glued to their bases. I was pretty happy with it at first, but you can see from some angles they just don't look right. But we'll come back to that in a bit. To make the laugh tracks, I had to edit out all the stupid noises and baby talking we were doing in order to get the babies to laugh. And once that was done, I had about 15 seconds for each kid. Here's my first test run.
Okay.
Here's the cover all painted up. I ended up going back and adding some material behind the vents to at least make it look more like a radio. Now to paint the figures. And, ooh, God, look how bad that looks. You know, shitty paint job aside, the sculpt doesn't even look like my kid, and that's my fault for using an AI-generated image for the initial sculpt. So I went back, re-sculpted them again with their actual photos this time, and I think they turned out a lot better. So I was pretty happy with these at first until I got like a base coat on them, and then I could really start to see the problems. That one had a bump on his head from one of the bangs, and I couldn't sand it down. So I spent a few more hours in Blender and made the changes, and here's the final results that I ended up using. Having spent so much time on this, I didn't want to just shove it all into a shoebox, so I found this box that wasn't so boring and would look a little bit nicer. Then I just put it into Blender, scaled it up to size. Here's mine. It doesn't open up nearly as smooth, but it looks okay. And I added some foam on the inside to make sure the boys were secure. This was my first time trying to use an airbrush, so I was having a lot of difficulty at first, and even in the end I had a lot of difficulty. The skin's not nearly as detailed as I would have wanted it to be. It looks kind of flat, but I just got afraid to add more details and mess up what I had done already. Obviously didn't want to mess up the eyes, so I bought some water slide decals and thought that I would just print out actual photos of their eyes. And I had those printed out, but I didn't realize I only had a black and white printer, so unfortunately I had to paint the eyes myself. Here's my first pass at them. Looking at the angles, there's still something off with the second and third kid. The first one looks pretty good, I think. The second kid, just looking at him, like his smile, it's not even a smile, he's just making a weird face. And I think the reason why he looks so off is because he needs a tongue. And I didn't sculpt the tongue in there the first time for whatever reason. So I just made one out of clay and popped that in there, and I think it made it look a lot better. I made some adjustments to the paint around the mouth to make it look more like a smile as well. And then I'm just adding some velvet, or I don't know, I guess velvet to the foam to make it look a little bit more polished. in total, this project took me about a month and a half to complete, but in the end, I'm pretty happy with the result, and I think she'll like it.
August. November. Arthur.
And that's it. And I figure every year I can add something to those files and she can listen to it. But here's the initial mock-up to the final result. And I think it turned out okay. Well, let me know what you guys think. How did I do? Did I just fuck myself in years to come because I'll never be able to top this? Probably.